Our group is called Toveema in the spirit of Toveema, which is the entity. Toveema is a sea cliff rock formation right off the coast of current-day Palos Verdes. Toveema is our first singer and our first dancer. And Toveema is the guardian of all of Tovangar, the mainland and the islands. It is in the spirit of Toveema that we bring out these songs, we learn our ancestral songs, and we bring out new songs. It is also in the spirit of Toveema that we take care of our lands and our water base the best way that we know how.
Heyung, Ayuki, Hutkich. Hello, welcome to the final episode of Reclaiming Our Stories. We have spent this series moving through time. We've named what came before, told the truth of the present, and now, together, we turn toward what is yet to come. Sovereignty is tonight's topic. Sovereignty is not an abstraction. It is not merely a legal category or a moment in history. Sovereignty is a living practice. It lives in language, in land, in the hands of those who carry the culture forward, and in the choices communities make every single day. It is important to note that sovereignty is not something that was given to us by any government. Sovereignty was bestowed upon us by the Creator, and the rights that we possess as tribes are inherent to us, and were here with us since time immemorial. Tonight's conversation is rooted in joy, in continuity, and in collective responsibility. Tonight we ask, what type of future are we building? So I want to begin by asking each of our guests to introduce themselves briefly and respond to this first question. What does tribal sovereignty mean to you and your community?
Darlene Franco, not Wukchumni, Nimnoom Tan Martha, Yannick Wilcox Tapleris, Yonim Chucha, Beatrice Lolmont Sauset, Francisco Wilcox, Yonim Chucha Noon Tan Mini Miguel Francisco. Natahechi, Natahetewish Hechi. I'm very happy to be here today. So my name is Darlene. I'm from the Wukchumni people in Central California, which is San Joaquin Valley, also known as Amashpa'an, the basket world. And if you look at a topographical map, you'll see the San Joaquin Valley, and that's where we're from. And I introduced my mom, my grandma, my great-grandma, because that's how we recognize ourselves, matrilineal. And because they've all played important roles in who I am today and just the ability that I am to be here today, I like to trace that because it's so important. So when we talk about the sovereignty, for me, sovereignty is the ability to follow our rules, our laws, things that were handed down to us. Our creation stories tell us that we were created by the animal people and we were given instructions. Some of those instructions were to take care of each other, take care of the land and the water. And so to me, that's what sovereignty is, the ability to do this, which was taken away from us for a long time, especially like in my grandparents' age when they were no longer able to go out and hunt and to gather freely. My mom went to boarding school. She was no longer able to speak her language freely. All these things that were suppressed, but now we're bringing it back. Now we're able to speak our language. Now we're using, my children all were named in this naming ceremony by my mom. She gave them their names. They all have indigenous names. We have Lohosai, which is named after my great-grandfather, which means happiness. My daughter Yannick was named after my mom, which is a very powerful medicinal flower. And then my youngest son, Kawanish, was named after the meteor showers. He was born the night of the meteor showers, and that was also my great-grandfather's name. So to me, that's sovereignty, bringing that back and letting our kids know that they can be who they are and they don't have to stifle it, and to be proud of who they are. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Ms. Pinto.
Hauka, my name is Erica Pinto. I come from San Diego. I'm the tribal chairwoman of my tribe, the Jamul Indian Village of California. And if you look at the map, you'll see a little dot on the map, and that's our little 6-acre trust land. I've been the chairwoman there since 2015, but I've served my people on the tribal council and as vice chair for 30 years now. So I go way back. It's something I really enjoy, the highs and the lows. My mom is Carleen Chamberlain. My father is Jesse Pinto Sr. My grandfather is Tony Pinto, former chair of the Ewiiaapaay Band of Mission Indians. To me, I'm the vice president of the Southern California Tribal Chair and the current chair of the California Tribal Chair Association. To me, when I think of sovereignty, the speech that we heard in the room earlier, Sienna, I think her name was Sienna, she hit it on the head, everything that she said about sovereignty. It's not just government to government. It's not just meeting with agencies, state, local, federal agencies. It's more than that. It's beyond the courtrooms. It's a land. It's exercising our sovereignty involves land, involves our language and culture. Exercising our sovereignty means that we do have bylaws. We have full jurisdiction over not only our lands, our people. We create these lands to keep our people safe. These bylaws, these policies, but it's beyond that. And I know we have other questions that I want to answer and address those, but that's what it means to me, beyond government to government. Thank you.
Well said, thank you. Juan.
Hauka penyamat Juan Wenechui mat Sampasquacopai, mat Ewiiaapaay Kumeyaay, mat Shla Kumeyaay, Napum Contreras, Napum Villalobos, Napum Reynoso, Napum Waipok Shmot. Hi everyone, my name is Juan Reynoso. I'm from the Ewiiaapaay band of Kumeyaay Indians. We're the northern relatives of Chairwoman Pinto and the south. I said hello, I'm grateful to be here. I come from the Waipok clan, we're the Mountain Kingsnake clan, as well as our contemporary clans, the Reynoso clan honoring my dad. Villalobos, the Contreras, all the way back matrilineal as well, and patrilineal. Sovereignty. So when I think about sovereignty, it's kind of a combination of what we've heard so far as the ability to govern oneself and community, to live within this understanding of spiritual, mental, physical wellness and safety, this idea of really practicing what it is to be Indigenous people in all of our ways, whether that be through policy, whether that be through a spiritual connection. So for me, when I think about sovereignty, it's really that understanding of governance within self and the community's responsibility to provide those environmental pieces for us to be able to be ourselves authentically in that will per se.
Beautiful. So I want to turn towards the future, and what are some of the things you're seeing that are maybe more recent developments in terms of exercising sovereignty? That's something that gets you excited about what you're seeing or what your tribe is actually doing.
So I forgot to say that I'm also the tribal chairperson of our tribal council, Wukchumni Tribal Council, and I'm the CEO of our nonprofit. So we are not a federally recognized tribe. So in order to take care of some of the business, we formed a nonprofit so that we could receive grants and do those sort of things. So we have always been intact. We've run ceremonies, and especially like our morning ceremonies have stayed intact since forever. Some of our other ceremonies, we've had to go underground, some of our songs and dances and things, as time changed. But our morning ceremonies, we have kept that intact. And so following when the pandemic hit and our tribe was not getting any assistance. Some federal tribes were, other organizations, but just everyday life, going into the grocery store and there being no food on the shelves, no toilet paper, our life was changing. And so we as a council decided that we needed to become more food sovereign. We needed to grow our own food. We needed to take care of our families, take care of our people. And so we started farming. We started growing food, a big garden basically. But we had access to some land, so we were able to do that. That garden has turned into a farm. We run composting, recycling. We're stewarding the land, taking out invasive plants, putting in California natives, tending our medicinal plants on this piece of property. It doesn't really belong to us, but we have an agreement with the Visalia Friends, the Quaker organization. We run our ceremonies there. We grow basketry materials. We gather from the elderberry trees, the plants that grow there naturally. So this is where we're headed. We have a youth program. We recently even started a housing program. So we were able to purchase a little bit of property, and then we're actually given some property so that we can have housing. So that's where our future is going. And it really makes me feel good when I drove some of our kids by the property that we bought. It was 1.5 acres. We can no longer say we're landless because we do have land now. But when I drove the kids by there, I had 3 kids with me. I was transporting them from an event. And I said, hey, did you know this is our land? And they're like, what? That's our land? And they're like, yeah. What are we going to do with it? We're going to build some apartments and some houses. Who's going to live there? And I'm like, you are, if your families want to live there. And they were like, really? Anyway, they were just so excited. This is our future. And watching our future develop and seeing what we're creating for them, for their future, and it makes me reflect on what my mom, my grandma, my grandfathers, what they created for me so that I could be here, and so helping to create for our future generations.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, what gets you excited about what maybe your tribe is doing or what you're seeing out there from other tribes? What's happening with sovereignty now that we can maybe share and get excited about?
Well, what makes me excited is land. When you look at California, all of the United States, it was tribal land. It was once our land. And then specifically for California, I can look at California and know that I'm in the Toveema. Did I say that right? Toveema land. And thank you for having us here. Land gets me excited, land back specifically. So for my tribe, I said, when you look at the map, you see the little dot, that's Jamul, 6 acres. What we've been able to do in exercising our sovereignty is go into a compact with the state of California and enter into gaming, our economic development. And we've since taken off in the last 10 years. We're going on our 10-year anniversary. So with revenue, we were able to purchase more land, 172 acres, which we put into trust via legislation. It's the Jamul Indian Village Land Transfer Act that was December 23rd, 2024. And so from there, we've just been going and taking off and running, and the members are excited because we've been off of our land since 2005 for our economic development. And with those revenues, we were able to purchase that land, and then we purchased even more land right contiguous to the Jamul Indian Village. This 172 acres is about 3/4 of a mile down. So we've been able to put that in trust. Now we're starting to develop it, and we have a plan for housing, healthcare, because sovereignty is also caring for our bodies and making sure that we can, be alive, be well to go into the future and continue these sovereign activities. But the land back is what's really exciting for me. I've seen it not only at my tribe, but I want to say 5 or 6 that I know of in the state of California that have land back. And what I would like to see, which would make me really excited, is when we get that land back, or whatever tribe, San Isabel, for example, just got thousands of acres back. I would like to see no strings attached, because that's true sovereignty.
Yes.
When we get our land back and I can look at it and pretty and I can admire it and I can pick my medicine and I can pick my acorns. No, hell no. I want the whole land back, and I don't want anybody to tell me what to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's beautiful.
But they become sources of revenue, and it's not all about that.
Right.
But with that comes other opportunities to educate your people, to build housing for your people. So many opportunities, and you mentioned the ancestors too, and I always think our people had different struggles than we had, than what I had. My mom and my grandmother and my father and their parents and then their parents didn't have electricity in the 80s. In the 80s, in our community, if you've ever been there it's a pretty wealthy neighborhood. And here sits our little land with our little HUD homes and our little trailers. Some didn't have dirt, some had dirt floors, outhouses. And when you go down there now and look at it and you see what's sitting there, that is us exercising sovereignty by being in control of this land and doing what is best for our people, which was economic development, hotel, and one thing leads to another, and another, and another. So that's what makes me really excited.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, that's the true expansion of sovereignty, is expanding our land bases and our economic opportunities so we can be self-sufficient. So I really appreciate you saying that. And, my grandfather, one time he said, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. And in today's modern world, that's resources. And so we have to have those resources so we can be self-sufficient, so we can get ourselves well, so we can rely on ourselves and not have to rely on others. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Well, let's turn to Juan. What are you excited about?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thanks for grounding us in this beautiful conversation. I think just building off what we've heard again, like what Chairwoman Pinto was saying, San Pasqual, the tribe that I'm from, we've been in gaming since the 90s. We're one of the original compact tribes as well. And I think it was the first time that we started to see what it was like to move from the dirt roads, the HUD homes, really just this idea of, and I'm going to say the word, this kind of really what we worked with what we had, this concept of scarcity that really, I think, for about 20 years really kept us in this kind of simple mindset of this is what we're only able to obtain with gaming. And what's been beautiful to see, I'm going to be 43, so in my whole lifetime, I've spent my life on the reservation, and just to see the paradigm shift, looking at people's understanding of we can have this and we can do this as well. And so we just opened up this beautiful space. I mean, it's a little bright since we have one of the gas station here, a car wash here, right? But what's been really beautiful and lovely to see is where we live in Valley Center is the community, an unincorporated space of San Diego. And the partnerships that our tribal council has been having with the city in terms of buying pieces of land, buying the golf course, buying this next to it, but really strategically placing us in a position where wherever you go, you're going to be on Sampasquaw land. Where when I was a kid, we were like 6 random parcels here. It was a puzzle piece. And so to be able to drive through a start point of your reservation and come out of it and be like, whoa, I'm still here on my lands. And before, I remember I walked across the street and that was the county and that was this. So that's what I'm excited, is to continue to see the expansion of our minds and what's possible. And just again, to see this concept of essentially, making rattles and now having a beautiful space where people are coming. Kumeyaay Community College is a joint consortium of all of our communities and hosting spaces to it, right? I mean, it makes me feel inspired about the youth to come, because before I was one of those little ones, and now it's like, whoa, my nephews and nieces who are 10 and 12 and 13 can be like, I can see myself being part of this growth. And so that's what gets me excited.
I do work in my wellness court, people struggling with addiction and trauma, and to be able to send them to services that are contained on the reservation is such an advantage for those who need that help. In other places I've worked, they have to travel an hour and maybe, it's booked for months in advance. So being able to develop those spaces, be able to deliver services to our people on our own land, I think is a huge, it really makes a lot of difference for those types of things. So I really appreciate that as well. I was curious, and I'll just kind of open this up to anyone on the panel. Can you think of some untapped or underutilized areas of tribal sovereignty? Maybe some things that haven't been tried or tested or proved yet, but you would like to see in the future. And I think of the Salt River tribe out in Arizona, who built a baseball park on the reservation for Major League Baseball teams, for the Cactus League. And I thought that was such a brilliant move, and it got me thinking about what could be possible. So is there any sort of underutilized or kind of untapped areas of our sovereignty that you could see tribes moving into in the future?
I was just thinking myself, because you said that Salton Sea tribe. We have a tribe in California, in San Diego County, that also has a major contract with the soccer league. I don't know much about sport ball, but I know there's soccer going around town here somewhere.
Soccer.
But
World Cup.
World Cup, thank you.
The biggest thing.
So the World Series, the World Cup.
That little thing, yeah.
But I know there's energy sources that are starting to be tapped into. As far as untapped, my mom's always wanted a mortuary. She wants to build a mortuary on her reservation, because she says we could do it right and be more sensitive rather than cookie cutter, and that's always going to be around. She goes, everybody's always going to do that. So I won't say what she said, but she said, no, that's something that we need.
That's a great point. That is something we need. What about, do you have any ideas of untapped?
I want to make a comment before I do that. I know that I was around before casinos, and my mom passed away before a lot of the casinos have really evolved. And I know that her and the generations before her would be very proud of what a lot of our casinos are doing, and a lot of the economic development, the healthcare that's being provided, the housing that is being provided. And I know that it makes my heart happy to see that other people are able to do this, even though that's not something we have yet, but we're going and doing it a little bit differently. So what I wanted to say about things that are untapped, I think really we're starting to tap into it. Cultural burnings, taking care of the land. When I was a little girl, I would go and follow my grandma to go pick her basketry materials, just around her garden. She would talk to the plants, and I watched and I observed. I didn't ask a lot of questions. I don't remember asking, but I learned from her by watching. And I remember going through fences, we'd hold up in the fence, grandma would crawl in, I'd crawl in, and she'd go and she'd tend to all these basketry materials. And at that time, I didn't realize that we were breaking the law because we were going into private property, but it's land that she had gone for since she was little. And so even though we were breaking the white man's laws, she was following her law. And her law said she needed to go tend to these plants She needed to take care of them. She needed to talk to them. She needed to tell them why we were going to gather them and what they were going to be used for. So I think really teaching our next generations that these are the real rules, these are the real laws, these are the things that we're supposed to be doing, and helping them to take their place. It may not be in my lifetime, it may be in the next generations, but we need to really, raise our children so that they know that this is their place and this is their responsibility. And that's where I think our future's going to be better.
Great, thank you. Juan.
No, so when the first thing came to mind was this idea of, and Chairwoman Pinto can speak more clearly to this piece, but I think about, as the Kumeyaay Nation, right? I mean, our tribal communities, we exist on the north side of the imperial border, the southern side of the imperial border. I mean, our people go all the way down to Valle de Guadalupe and Ensenada, to the Colorado River. I mean, our ancestral lands exceed very far. And I think about, during the first administration, the Trump administration in 2016, when they were creating that border wall. It was going through Manzanita and La Posta and Campo and all of our southern relatives, and really just going through our sacred sites. And I remember that summer was like 120 degrees, and it didn't matter which Kumeyaay tribe you were from, we were doing a call of action. And we would show up at that wall every day for the entire summer, and we would meet our relatives from the south at the wall. We couldn't see each other, and we would just pray and we would sing. And I thought to myself, we chose to show up for each other during the most harshest times. And then for me, when I think about now in this current political climate that we live in, how much sovereignty and power we exercise, not only as individual communities in our own tribal bands, but collectively as the Kumeyaay Nation. As a queer person, as a Shla person, I think about the erasure of our relatives and people who are in our stories. And how powerful would it be to have a collective union of sovereign governance of our Kumeyaay Nation saying, hey, we don't tolerate that in this space. This is how we collectively ban as a consortium and push back on these federal policies, because they love to use us and work with us when it works to their advantage. But I think how much more leverage and power can we execute when we show up for those uncomfortable conversations? So that's what I would like to see. I know there's a little bit of personal bias because I am from that community. How much political pressure are we continuing to fall into as border tribal people? So I think about just really visioning and futurizing what is possible with collective power.
Yeah, I always think about the collective power tribes could have really to achieve more solidarity, especially on those issues there's issues that we can all come together and agree on, and you see it, surrounding the Indian Child Welfare Act, around gaming, but we could really put pressure on the other governments that we deal with if we could truly unite more for the common good. And that's really something I would love to see California come together on. So speaking of kind of what was just talked about, what are some of the biggest threats that you see looming or that you're currently fighting against when it comes to tribal sovereignty? We'll start with you, Chairwoman.
For us, it's not being recognized by the federal government, and that puts us in a classification where other people don't recognize us. And so applying for funding, right now we're trying to apply for funding for housing, applying for other grants or opportunities, land. We've had to retell our story a few times in order to make ourselves eligible for some of these things. So constantly fighting that, and the general public, just basically thinking that California natives are all casino Indians. And, and that's not true, but really, I guess, fighting being erased. And that's, that really is, especially for us in the Central Valley. So we have to make ourselves more noticeable. And the things that we've done in the last 5 years since COVID really was, we're developing these programs. We have a building that we operate out of. We went from a building that had no air conditioning, no heating, but it was free, to now we have a nice building, and we're eventually going to be building our building on the property that we just acquired. Having programming for our children, for our elders, for our adults, and being more visible to the school districts, to the city, to different people in the area. So we're constantly fighting for recognition around with other people. We know who we are. We know where we come from. The neighboring tribes know who we are and recognize, who we are. We're basically related to everybody in the area anyway. They just have a different status than we do. But, federal recognition does not define us. It just helps us with some opportunities.
Oh, thank you. So, Chairwoman Pinto, what are some of the threats that you see on the horizon or that you're currently facing?
So the federal government has a trust and treaty obligation to all tribes. And what I see is it's slowly eroding. It's being chipped away. When we talk about funding, fully funding, for example, let me see the IHS, health clinics, because healthcare is like my top priority, and taking care of myself, being sovereign about my body, trying to make good choices so I could see these things through. But when the funding gets pulled back for certain things, be it special diabetes or cancer research or whatever IHS needs for our people, it does chip away at us. It's almost like how do you say this? It's almost like kind of like a genocide all over again by taking that money, because you can think back and we talk about the DNA, we talk about our historical trauma that flows through our blood, we carry it. We carry the trauma of our ancestors. And so because of all of these things, you could talk about the boarding schools or, all the things that our ancestors went through and the trauma that we're carrying, the federal government has to fund us. The federal government has that obligation. When they pull back, that's a challenge to us. How are we going to get these programs out? How are we going to continue to care for our people, or the things that happen to us and the trauma that we have as tribal people that we carry? I feel like we need healing. We need to start somewhere, and I talk about the land and how healing that land is to purchase for us. That land was healing for us because we held our first gathering in March, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. You talked about Ewiiaapaay. That Ewiiaapaay I think it's being challenged again, or it's looming. And, our kids need to be in our American Indian households. They can't go anywhere else, but it's happened. They fall through the cracks. So, we could talk about gaming again too, because some of these, what's it called? Sports betting is coming down the line. And are we going to continue to have exclusivity? I don't know. I kind of fear that we may not. So we have to start doing other things like diversification, gas stations, health centers, educating our people, having the opportunity for them to be educated and to come back and help the tribes out. So when I look and see the news, it just feels like, oh my gosh, this is going to be an attack on our sovereignty, or this is going to be an attack on, and with this administration, I fear that, are we going to be eradicated? Are we going to be, reservations going to be taken out of trust? Are we going to just get to a point where, they're going to think that we don't exist anymore? Mm-hmm. So to her point, yes, it's a constant, continuous education. And it's truth-telling. It's telling the truth of what happened and what is the history of our tribal nations. I just watched something called the People of the West series. But when you watch that, it's not romanticized, it's not sugar-coated. There was some people in there talking about, it's our people, talking about the shit that we went through, the trauma, all that stuff is in there if you watch it. And I think it's like a 10-part series, but I saw the first couple of them at Verona. It's a continuous education of people knowing the true history. And that's how you're going to work with people if they run for office or they're the president of the United States. You have to make them understand that this is a responsibility that they have to each of these nations in the United States, and they have to abide by it. And I feel like slowly but surely they're pulling back, and that's scary.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's Chairwoman, when you said the threat of being erased, it's very unique to tribes that we have sort of this pressure and stress that's constant and of just existing, as a people. And, I don't think not that many other groups in this country have that. We live with that every day, this pressure of someone is actively trying to erase us. It's very stressful. So Juan, what do you see as some threats out there?
No, this is pretty. But like, it's like a layup. Set me up for a bit thinker. So I'm gonna kind of bring us a little bit into more of like a centralized. I'm gonna bring you into Sampus Wall because I think that's just I want to speak from the position of my own community, and I don't speak for Sampus Wall. I speak from Juan, who is from Sampus Wall, and my experiences. But I think about this idea, and then Chairwoman, because we have like this, this. We see the tension, the federal government, we see the grants, and I also, short plug here, co-founded a nonprofit called the Queer Soul Collective with my dear friend Giovanni Perez. And in the same token, we're having to create these spaces because we see this writing on the wall of where's the funding, where's the resource, where's the need? And that initiative to create something outside of my own tribal community was because we didn't have that access in our own tribal community. And so it was like, okay, well, how do we start to diversify and look at those types of spaces where we can meet up with local other community members who are looking at the same thing, right? Where's the access? Looking at it through accessibility is not just about being physically able to access spaces, right? It's our minds, it's our bodies, it's our language, it's everything. And so this idea of, okay, now we're shifting, I talked earlier about shifting from gaming into other spaces. We're putting up a small clinic, which is amazing. And I don't quite know who will be responsible for it, but it's on our land. And to speak to that is like, wow, like, okay, we're not having to rely on Indian Health Council. We're not having to rely on Southern Indian Health Coalition. Like, it's this idea of like, you can take care of your people. It's the re-education of like, looking at all of these fundings, these sources, and then thinking about, again, this idea of scarcity of like, okay, where there's like 3,000 of us, 4,000 people, right? Descendants, all tribal people living on these lands, but like 120 voting members. So literally like 120 tribal members who vote for us, and we're all just kind of looking for a space to find home, right? This idea of, okay, we're going to go out and get this education, we're going to go do all these things, but when we come home, where do we find ourselves? Where are those resources? And when, like those practices of when I was a young kid, go get an education, hon, go do that, go do this thing and come back and don't forget us. Well, we're there. We're at the door knocking, we're ready, we've been ready. And it's like, it's this idea of this legacy, this mentorship, letting people step into those leadership spaces. And for me, when I think about the sovereignty component, the kind of the problems and the things and the challenges is really this idea of where is the opportunity. And really like this idea of now we need to be more strategic than ever right now and really partner with other tribal communities that are experiencing the same thing, right? There's enough for everyone. And especially when we think about federal recognition, non-federally recognized tribes, this idea of like, if we just got together and we just said, hey, what is it you need? We're no longer vetting for resources, but as family, right? We're family, we're kin, we're relatives. Let's take care of each other. So for me, when I think about that, that's really is the challenges is like, how do we take care of our people in our backyard, but also know and extend as good relatives? That's the backyard here and so forth, right? It's the continued ecosystem beyond what I live in. So that's what I see.
Thank you.